K through 8 and our 12 through 9 through 12. I almost said 12. Wrong way. And on the calendar, it says that in October on the 9th that we are going to do 3.5 staff development, then our parent-teacher conferences. And also the same with February 5th for the K through 8. And I'm just wondering, was that staff development moved from somewhere to there, or is that added?
Can you say that? So with that, October 9th was what grade level?
The K8, both of these are K through 8.
K8.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to figure that out. And also, am I understanding that there is no added or that same professional development is not occurring somewhere in the high school schedule because of their conference schedule?
Obviously, we'll have to, I don't have the calendar even right here in front of me right now, so we'll have to take a look at that and give a response back to you. It could be later in this session or possibly at the beginning of the next session, if you're okay with that. Yeah. So just to make sure that I completely understand. So question is, October 9th, there is 3.5 hours of PD in the K8 schedule. And February 5th, there's 3.5 hours of PD in the K8 schedule. And you're wondering if that, where that came from. And then secondly, is that same amount allotted on the high school schedule somewhere?
Yeah, we're wondering, was that 3.5 added to the 2025 and not somewhere on the 2024 calendar?
Okay.
Or was that moved from some date that I just, don't know?
The concern is an increase in hours of support.
Thank you. Ready when you
Yes.
are. So looking at our letter and just going through here to one of the first things we have that doesn't really have a lot of monetary value attached to it. It would be our number 2 with the proposal to move to the Keep 2 evaluation tool. And so it's kind of pretty well spelled out in the actual letter as to what the rationale and why we would like to see it go that direction. So what questions, concerns, clarifications, or we can just turn it green and move on.
I don't think that one would turn green and move on without some discussion. Primarily, it isn't a workload increase for the staff to go to Keep. I don't know how much you've played with it. The teachers that we've talked to that have played with it have all reported that it takes extra time to do it. And there was a little bit of a dispute if I can find the language in here. This is the feedback from the pilot program was overwhelmingly positive. And when we looked through the feedback, we got anything but overwhelmingly positive from that. Do you have the numbers?
Yeah, when I went through it, there were a little over 60 comments, and there were 31 that were positive or neutral, not caring either way, and only there were 30 that were negative. Like, do not like this. It is much more work. The old system meant that we had way more discussion with my evaluator. Mainly though, it was a lot more work, and especially with the uploading of artifacts.
Another concern was that typically what we see is districts don't want to give up that local control to the state, and this is giving up that local control to the state. It's a state-run program versus a locally run program. And that it does shift some of the workload from administration to the teachers. Under most of your evaluation systems, the educational artifacts are plugged in by the administrator. The teacher typically email or present a lesson plan, and whether or not that gets uploaded into that is typically done by the administrator. Here it puts the burden on individual teachers.
So with the artifacts piece, how is that currently being done how are the teachers currently providing those artifacts to the admin?
So last year, because I was on the Keep this year, last year I would share my file, my lesson plan file with them through either Google Drive or email, however they asked me to share it, and that was where I had all of that. So then if they wanted anything else, I would put it would be in the document that I would share as well. So it's through Google Drive.
So what happened to those things after the evaluation, or where?
They're still in my drive.
So in the Google Drive?
Because I shared it with them. I didn't just hand it to them. Sometimes if they want to see a student piece of work, I'd probably just hand it to them because that's not something that's usually on my drive already.
So where, like, if you handed them a student piece of work as an artifact, I guess I'm just thinking about this from when I was in the classroom, and usually it was me wanting to provide artifacts to them based on my goals and where I was working in my evaluation process. So where does that stuff go if I give it to the administrator currently and it doesn't get uploaded somewhere? Because I don't know that we upload those things currently. I'm trying to figure out, because currently we print off E4E evaluations and they're signed and everything, but I've never seen an artifact come to my office. And is that a requirement of the evaluation process that it is the amounts of work because we're not currently doing what we should be doing to the fullest? And the KEEP system makes us do that? Or what's the piece?
And that's to the root of what I was speaking about. If as a teacher, I go through and I provide those artifacts to my administrator, and the administrator views them and either hands them back to me or discards them, then to the best of my knowledge, I have no way of knowing whether or not they uploaded those artifacts. But under the KEEP system, it's not an issue of me providing it to them. It's an issue of me as the educator. Now I have the responsibility of taking the time to upload those. And so it's shifting that burden from the administrator, who, when I provide them with the artifacts, it's currently up to them. If those need to be uploaded, it's currently up to them to upload it. And now it's shifting that burden to the individual teachers. Some of those artifacts, depending on what it is, and all of that, it's extra time. And I mean, they could get potentially, what's a good way to put it? Time prohibitive. If you've got several artifacts that you need to use, and talking about scanning it. And I understand the flip side of the coin is that you're asking that of the admin as well, but we're not bargaining for the admin.
No, I'm just trying to make sure that I completely understand, and I may have to go back and take a look at the whole statute for what's required and what needs to be there and what doesn't need to be there. And again, whose responsibility that ultimately would be to make sure it's there. Because I guess if it's my evaluation and I'm providing artifacts, then I would probably want those artifacts to be in that system if that's what I'm providing as evidence of my evaluation. And I wouldn't I wouldn't leave that up to the administrator. I would want to make sure that my artifacts got where they needed to be.
Right, and that is a completely valid argument. What we're talking about is a division of labor issue, though. And if presently that is an admin division of labor, and you're shifting it to the teachers, even with the most, honest and good of ideas, it's still extra work. And so that I would agree that it's worth investigating. What about Joel? Do you want to ask your question?
I was trying to go through it like some wanted to know the accountability of administrators to actually look at the evidence, the artifacts, because questions have come from principals. Oh, did you want me to look at that? It's like, I just spent all these hours uploading it. Yes, I want you to look at my artifacts. So I want a way to make sure that if I'm spending all this time doing it, I want some credit for doing this.
Sorry, we're having a live stream.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have the rights to send it to all 443 certified. The folks that can grant that aren't here, so we're working on another way to send it out.
Okay. Well, it'll save the recording, right?
Theoretically, yes.
Okay.
That's kind of like a little distracting right now.
One of the things that we have somebody a member who used KEEP in a different district, and that district really required a lot of the artifacts, and it was overwhelmingly a time prohibitive to the end. They had, at the secondary level, they were spending 10 plus hours, up to 20 hours, and some of that they had to do on their own time. The elementary was spending closer to 40 or 50, maybe, because of just how much more that they do in their classrooms. The one positive for that, I'll stop it.
Just to make sure I'm tracking as the new person, so are we in it, so currently my understanding is you're using the E4E observation, is that correct? Okay. So in looking at the negotiated agreement currently and in the handbook, the evaluation handbook that I believe is an appendix or included in that, I guess my question is, currently, is it that artifacts are not required under the current system, or it's how those are being provided to administrators that's not specific from your perspective?
Artifacts that are asked, they are not, in the years that I have been evaluated at the district under E4E, they are not specifically requesting any more than my prepared lesson plans, which are already stored on my Google Docs or on my Google Drive. And the E4E is that way, but the KEEP was, I needed to go in and on my own, set my own goals. I never had that discussion with my principal. I mean, on the E4E, I set my goals, but it was come in and have a discussion and we fill it out, and then we move on from there, and they come and evaluate me and things like that. So the KEEP, I had to do all of that. I apparently didn't do it right the first time. I tried to do it a second time. It didn't do it right again. So it's already taken me more time just trying to get that part of it set up. So it's not just the artifacts, but it's the whole thing. But the artifacts is a big consuming time too, because I had 3 artifacts I wanted to upload for myself, and my lesson plan artifact went up really quickly and easily. Just the rest of them, like I would spend my plan time plus some time after school, several days. I finally found a little hint from somebody, and that's how I finally was able to get them to upload. But I probably worked on it at least 7 or 8 different times just to try to get that one artifact to upload.
When in the E4E, you have that personal discussion when you go over the rubrics. And if a principal doesn't see a certain item and marks you low, then they'd say, oh, well, do you have the artifacts to prove that you do it when I'm not in the room? And then I can provide artifacts. And that was the only thing that was required, is just if I wanted to move over on the rubric, provide proof that I've done something.
So is this a difference in just how the information is collected, whether it's collected on the front end or after a conversation with administration? Is it just the timing of things? Is it more prescriptive under K2 or KEEP 2?
We had better discussions when we had that rubric in front of us to follow. And you don't get your final summative until after it's already too late to move over. So it's just, the discussions were better, the feedback was better on the E4E.
Because I just happened to notice on page 92, ongoing informal observations, artifacts, and data collection are continual. Educators will be collecting data and artifacts on an ongoing basis to be prepared for the summative evaluation. So to me, that sounds like it's always been the responsibility of the educators to provide the artifacts and to do that legwork. So I'm just wondering if is this just a learning curve that anytime something is new, it takes time, it's a little bit more laborious the first couple of times. If we can get some training, if we can do those things, if ultimately it's a more robust evaluation tool, that there could be benefits that would outweigh some of those growing pains, I think would be a conversation worth having.
And ultimately, my view of the two evaluations, I felt my E4E had better discussion and contact with my administrators than my KEEP. Not just based on me having to move my artifacts from where they were housed, but having to also just like certain things I had to do before we met. I felt like we're not facilitating the conversations with my administrators as much as it had before.
I would agree with that. The feedback that I got from high school people, obviously my husband was one that did it, and several other colleagues, that their discussions with their admin was much better under E4E than it was under KEEP. Like just the discussion ahead of time, like the pre-observation form facilitated a much better understanding on both parts of the goal that the teacher had for the year and the goal for the class that they were going to be observing. Just overall, it's a better conversation and helped you grow more.
Yes. Are we meeting it by what our current practices are, is my question. Yeah, I'm going, again, my current concern, and after looking at the evaluation handbook, and pulling up a couple of pieces of information, is that I get the mixed reviews, and I really truly feel like no matter what the evaluation tool is, it's going to come down to the two people involved in that process as to whether there's going to be growth or not growth, or if that communication is going to be clear and taken seriously. But I want to, from the HR perspective, I want to take a deeper look into making sure that we are meeting all requirements, even with our current practice. And we don't have to have some conversation about what's required as far as those ongoing artifacts or some of those pieces of the evaluation process. So we can have this whole conversation at one time and not have to come back to it, no matter what we decide on which tool it is. If that makes sense. What about student growth measures? Are those being completed?
So that I think is some confusion at different levels. I think for elementary, it's pretty clear as to what they use as their student growth measures. But at the secondary and levels, I don't. I know that we were told to tie our student growth measures to our radar. And when we did our radar this last year, we didn't actually do it the way it probably should have been done. So it was just kind of a big muddled mess for the KEEP part of it. And I think with the student growth measures in the past, that's been something that the admin has handled. That's why we didn't know how they were doing it. So.
Thank you.
Full and elementary, similar, different.
I was able to do the one that the district wanted me to do. I picked one of those, and then I put a survey that I did with the kids, which isn't really a student growth measure, but it was KEEP approved. So I think I only used one that you could actually physically measure.
I'm not sure how they did it at the high school. I did the E4E this year, so my student growth measures were based on the new social studies state test. So how much better did my kids do from the rubric the first year compared to this year? Because that's been years. So, and I kept that data. The district does not keep that data in a very easy to get at way, which is just how it is. The state doesn't collect that data the same way as math or ELA. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
So did I understand correctly? You wanted to verify the legality of how the data is stored?
Yeah, both. I just want to make sure, and again, I also want to have a general discussion with some of our team consultants that deal with this a lot more than I do on a day-to-day basis as well, just to make sure that I fully understand what we should be doing with the evaluations and what components have to be there required as part of the evaluation, and see what is our current practice of gathering and storing that information before we get too far down a road saying we want to stay with this one because it's less work. Well, maybe it's less work because we're not doing everything we should be doing in it currently. That's my concern. So,
And that's fair. I don't think there's anybody in the room that wants to violate a state statute.
yeah, I just want to make sure that and again, if we decide that one is a better tool overall than the other, is here, like, I'm not here because I like Keep or like E4E. I just want to make sure we have something that's functional that can help have all of our information in a easy to use, meaningful manner, and can be stored in a way that it can be re-accessed if need be. And the other piece to this from the teacher perspective is then they have access. There's no concern of the state having direct access to those files. I know that was something that has come up in conversation, is there was concern about the state storing that information so everybody has direct access to those files. That's not a thing. Those things are stored on individualized servers and things to where the school district and the teacher who has that is the only one that has access to their information in those files, unless obviously there's a breach of some kind in cybersecurity, which then we're all at risk of anything at any point in time. So that is one thing that we did check on because that came up early in that pilot process and has had some questions about some of those things. It would allow for the easy access and transfer of those things to other districts if there was some fluidity of that teacher moving from district to district within the state. But again, I just want to, from my perspective, hearing this conversation, that we think there's going to be this intense increase in amounts of work by using the state-sponsored system makes me think, are we doing what the state requires currently?
So I would like for you to check a question out for us too, if you don't mind. Because the question is, if we do go to the Keep and we decide that later on we don't want to continue to use that tool, are we allowed to move? Or once there, we just are there and whatever the state changes that tool to be, we just have to stay with that tool. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think we have to bring it, like, obviously we're negotiating the usage of that tool. So each and every year, that tool could potentially be renegotiated.
Don't think she means from a negotiation standpoint. I think she means like, if we sign on with Keep, are we locked in according to the state?
That's what I'm asking.
Like, you know how sometimes you'll sign a contract for, say, Power School, and you're gonna use Power School for 3 years, or you're gonna use Canvas for 5 years based on your contract. is keep set up like that where once you're in, you're locked in?
I don't, great question. I will check to find out. I don't believe so because it's a free service offered by the state. I don't believe there's even a contract, so to speak, for it, but I will definitely check.
Just because I know things change, and that's one of the reasons why I was asking that.
Thank you. Yeah, because I think honestly that would be, it'd have to be in the negotiated agreement almost. If you're going to sign a 3-year deal with the state to use Keep, then we'd have to negotiate it for at least 3 years, or we'd be in violation of negotiations.
In my understanding, we're going to table this and come back to the future.
I appreciate that. I will get the answer to that question from the state as well.
When you're looking that up, could you also check to see if the number of goals are manipulatable, as well as the number of items or artifacts that you need to upload, and the frequency? Because it may be one of those things where if we're looking at a time crunch, there might be options to reduce that within the system.
Thank you.
Never find anything about what.
Unfortunately, my premonition is because it's a state-sponsored tool that any type of change like that would have to be somewhat reprogrammed for individual districts. But
I have no way.
maybe there's some check boxes in there somewhere where you can turn them on and off. I don't know. So I will definitely ask. I know that was even something that we had considered with E4E, is can we find a way to stay with what we're comfortable currently using and just have some different ways of allowing for some, and it basically requires a complete change of the entire tool. And unfortunately, with that tool, it's used by many districts out here in Southwest Kansas, and then everyone would have to renegotiate it.
Yeah, and that was the local control piece that I spoke about earlier, is how much autonomy do you have within the system to manipulate it to your school district the best? Or is it a cookie cutter, one size fits all, everybody does it the same way?
I'm assuming the second, but I don't know that, so I will look into it. Well, where would you like to go next?
You had some housekeeping items on there. Let's see, it looks like page 21, letter F, update list. You know where you were headed with that?
Yeah, so as the associate soup of HR, over the years, I think there's been some different negotiating agreement real fast. That's one thing I noticed.
Yeah, because that's your department chair, right?
We don't, yeah. And so based on departments, especially it's mainly at the high school and the middle schools. And then as departments grow or change, there's been some other payments made to department chairs, but they're not on that list. So again, only saying that because I've seen the ARs and the payment documents come through, and I'm like, what? Why aren't they listed in there? And of course, from the district perspective, if somebody's doing the work, then we want to make sure they're paid. I just want to make sure that we get that list updated so the next person in my position isn't looking at this list and going, that one's not on there, and that one's not on there. Like, so,
So which ones are you?
that's what
I think it's pulling it.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting to, and
It's
I actually,
page 21, yeah.
I may actually have to run upstairs and grab my negotiated agreement out of my binder where I put all my notes in, because I write them down in there to try to make sure that I have them all in there. So let me run up there and grab that negotiated agreement that has all that in there real fast.
While he's doing that, do we want to take a 5-minute break?
I'm just gonna say that, I need to.
Set the state statutes that I've been on.
And so I just want to check to make sure that they're in here. Is there one for communications?
No,
So that would be one that is now large enough at the high school that it's considered a department. It's in CTE.
Yeah.
And it comes through as communication CTE. We have business. We have family and, we have family and consumer science. We have, there's industrial arts, math, PE, special education, health science. There's health science, but there's no regular science. So we need to add science. All of the things.
I know who the science chair is.
Yeah, so again, just as I was looking at things, I'm like, something's not right here. We have social studies. The only other one, and it's just listed different than what they have, they put it in a world language, and it's on here as foreign language, so it's there already. Unless we want to put a hyphen in there. And then the rest of them are all on there, so.
so the two that you were thinking of adding are communications and science, and then just adding a word to the title, the foreign language.
Foreign/world language, because again, we can keep it as consistent with what they're gonna call it when we go to pay that person. It helps whoever's in my position as you're referencing back and forth to not have to send extra emails or make phone calls.
May I ask a question? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is it essentially, is there a mechanism in which a department is recognized to have a department chair? Like, is there a tipping point where you weren't before, but you are now?
So since I've been in my position, it's been when the high school principal deems that that department needs somebody to lead it.
Okay.
And so, no, there's not like there's not like there's got to be this many people in the department. There hasn't been as long as I've been in this position. Now, if you look down here,
Mhm.
there are some descriptors as far as less than 3 to 5, 6, like how the payments are actually made kind of determines what the department makeup is. It's more based on that than it is, does there need to be a department head in that department or not? So if there's less than 3 teachers, there's no payment anyway. But all of those other departments that are listed in here have at least 3 to 5 teachers in them, which is why they're listed in there.
The only reason I asked is I didn't know if there would be a way to put language in the agreement that would recognize when that would occur, so you don't have to
Try to catch them.
catch them or change the language. From what it sounds like to me is it's not that people aren't being paid, it's a matter of making sure that it's just the language is matching up with the actions of the board. So I just always try to look for language that can make it so we don't have to make adjustments, or if we do make adjustments, they're almost automatic every year of we're going to amend Appendix A that has the list or something. It makes no difference to me, obviously. That was the only reason I was asking. So.
And actually, there is some language to that, and in the guitar portion of the letter, we'll discuss that.
Okay.
But you do already have some language in there because this is in your special salary index. You have some language about adding items to that. And
So adding true positions. And so you would be considering this adding a position?
I mean, potentially, it's worth a
Okay,
discussion.
well, and yeah, so if that's the case, then we could use that 10, well, if that'll even stay in place, we'll see. So,
It's worth the
yeah.
discussion,
I get you. So, okay,
because depending on how that plays out, it
Yeah.
may work itself out.
yeah, I get you.
Any concerns, questions?
Adding 4 people in the list, I have no concerns. I feel like they are working more than 3 as a team leader and, or department chair. Sorry, team leader, that's 2 different things. No, it's not.
If your side is on board, I would suggest marking this one as tentatively agreed, depending how the other stuff comes out, since they potentially interact.
I guess, yeah, I normally assume that you're not gonna balk at us paying people in your organization for what they're doing.
Not gonna balk. Let's make sure our language is where we want it. Yeah. So I marked that as tentative until we get done with ours. Language for split chairs and split facilitators.
Yeah, so this is something that's come up a couple of times over the last 2 years, really, where we've had situations where people have agreed to do a split role. And so instead of 1 facilitator, there's 2, and they're gonna split those duties. But there's no language for that. And so, again, just for clarification and language purposes from the human resources perspective, I want us to come to an agreement on how that will be handled if 2 people choose to split those duties to be a PLC chair or a department chair or PLC facilitator.
Would your recommendation be an even split?
That's what my recommendation would be, from my perspective.
As a PLC facilitator, personally, I do not see a problem with that. I mean, if I'm splitting, I don't split it right now, but if I did and we agreed to do it evenly, but
The only concern I would have is the potential safeguard, so that it doesn't end up being, oh, let's agree to split this, and then it ends up being the high school group project where this person is doing 70% of the work and 50% of the pay. So if we could figure out some protection language on that, and I don't know whether that's to put that language in there or to just have administration monitor.
is this happening at all levels or just the high school?
It's mainly high school, maybe once at the middle school level. And it's, again, we've been operating kind of with that MO anyway, but we don't have language for it. So I don't want it coming back at some point that way, like, why are we doing this? And it's never really been a major issue. It's just something I wanted to make sure to get cleaned up so it doesn't become an issue.
Would it be acceptable to ask a question? Sure. I saw you nodding your head in the back, particularly when I said something about, the one person potentially doing 70% of the work, but getting half the pay. Has that been an issue in the past?
No, I was just agreeing that
Oh.
that could potentially be an issue, but in our minds, that's a
Personnel.
personnel
I mean, that's,
thing.
that needs to be, to your point, that needs to be cleaned up at the administrative level and then to HR if it doesn't get cleaned up at the administrative level.
But you would be open to that?
Yeah, if we can figure out like what that
Or you
is. I mean, yeah, I mean, it just makes sense that if 2 people are going to split the work, then they need to split the work. And if we need to help them manage that split, then I guess we have to help them manage that split. Because again, that would be something that would be in the HR office pretty quick if one person feels like they're doing 70% of the work and the other feels like they're doing, or doesn't feel like the other one is pulling their weight. It won't take long for us to hear about that, I'm sure.
So we can go ahead and just mark this as tentative so that we can get some language into there.
Thank you.
Is this something that both parties agree that they're going to split it, or do you assign people to work?
No, they agreed to.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's an agreement. And then we've never, like, from the ones I've been involved with, it's always been the principal reaching out to me and saying, hey, neither one of them really wants to do it by themselves, but they want to do it together. And so they decide that they're going to do it. Really, most of the time it comes to us as, can we do this?
I would hope that would cut down a little bit on some of it, but I think it's important to acknowledge possible pitfalls.
And I put why we're coming back to it is it's just for the language reason. Because I don't think you want to sit here today and hash out language. We can hash out language at our last meeting, but not now.
On C, you had add assistant, MS, floating assistant band to exhibit C. Could you explain a little further?
Yeah, so let me grab my notes. This is another one that came up in how it's worded and what the current reality of the situation is. So the position that is listed as these are off.
Are you,
This shows page 18.
I have 17 in mind.
Mine isn't on that page on the one I have printed out for some reason.
I wonder if
This number.
it's numbered somewhere.
You
You know what? That's because we misnumbered a page 14.
Okay.
Are you looking for the special salary schedule?
Yep.
It's page 17 on the printout.
I just got so many other notes that are inserted into this copy that I keep my notes in, and different emails that go back and forth. So I've got 4 years of communications and emails. So whoever I hand this off to next has the historical value of when those changes were made and how they came about. That's why I went up and got this copy. So yes, on the high school assistant / middle school floating assistant band, currently the way that is worded is not the same way as that for some reason. Where's that at? So it's not this one. Yeah, so high school / middle school band director. So currently it's just high school assistant / middle school band director. But there is one that is not a director at the middle school. And it's the way it's always been, is what it was explained to me. There is one that is a high school assistant, but that floats to both middle schools and is not actually the director of one of the middle schools. But it fits on the same pay line as that other. And this is another one of those that I could have done through the 10-day thing, but when I came across it, we were already getting ready for this, so I just put it in here as one of these items to see if we could just clean it up. It's already happening. It's already being paid. It's been like this forever. It's not listed on there. And then when I go to look at something when I'm signing off on payment, I'm like, why do we have a high school assistant / middle school floating director? That doesn't even exist in the NA. So there's 2 high school assistants that each come down to the middle school and each are the director of each middle school. Then there's a 3rd high school assistant that goes to both middle schools.
Okay.
And that's the position that's currently missing out of the NA, even though it's always been there.
So you have your one that's rated at $5,000 now. That's your head.
There's two of those.
Oh, two of those. And then you have,
And then there's a third one that doesn't have, it's
not on there
not
at all.
on there.
okay, so this is separate from that $1,000.
But it still gets paid the same as, so the one that says high school assistant / middle school band director, that 5,000, this position is the same pay as that position. It's just, they're not a director of one of the middle schools. And so therefore it's a little bit different than those two.
So they're like a high school assistant and middle school floater.
And that's why the language that I'm requesting is high school assistant / middle school floating assistant.
Is that person, and this gets a little bit weird, their responsibilities, is it more or less? Or is it
So they
about
are
the same?
also, that person is also in charge of, so the reason why that floating assistant gets paid the same as the two middle school heads is
Right.
because they also do jazz band.
Okay,
So,
It's a band, so yeah, that's how that works.
I can,
well, no, I know when we discussed it before, it was, everybody was kind of on board with it, pending asking those questions.
Yeah.
okay, so language is going to be high school assistant / middle school floating assistant, right?
Yep.
And, 5,000,
mhm.
oops, don't type an extra 5 in there. Okay, and we can all say added, major green. Whew. Okay, that was nice.
And then
Highlighted.
the adding an elementary class cover,
Yeah, so it's already in there. It's just, then when we added, so the elementary class cover is in a completely different area, but then we updated the secondary class covers. And I just think it would be simplest if the elementary class cover was right there in the same area where the secondary ones are, as opposed to being in a completely different spot. The elementary one is currently in the letters A through H somewhere, I think. But then the secondary ones have like their own page.
and that's kind of the same deal. We assume that's what you were gonna do.
Yeah.
Everybody's still,
I mean, not necessarily changing anything about any of them, just, can we just take it from where it's at and put it where the rest of them are so it's easier to find?
I don't think anybody's gonna object to making something a little bit streamlined.
Yeah, so the page 22 on letter H is where the secondary ones are, and then on there's the elementary. Anybody see the elementary ones in there somewhere?
I think it's under direct instruction.
Yes.
No, yeah.
Yes, elementary.
Teachers accepting students from,
Yes.
So
So
it's-
we can just take that, because that's basically a class cover for elementary purposes,
Mhm.
and just put it over there under letter H where class covers are. I think it would be easier to find.
Would it be at that same 30.58 per hour?
Accepting not to exceed letters, receive it, yes, so we would have to put that there for their purpose.
Just out of morbid curiosity, how was that number determined? A 0.58, you don't see that very often in these things.
It was originally, and this is old now, but it was originally determined, I believe, at one point off of the substitute rate of pay.
Okay.
Doing a division problem with the substitute rate of pay and the 6.667 hours amounts of work per day.
So are we leaving direct instruction where it says include but is not limited to, and then also taking 3058 per hour and the elementary and putting it on the page 22, right here with class coverage.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I said that. Did I? People that are looking at my document, wording is right. So let's turn this green.
Put the dollar amount. there.
Oh yeah, class coverage, okay. Right? Everybody agrees, green? Okay, we're good. All right.
Okay, the rest of your letter looks like you consider things that are gonna discuss salary. So do you wanna move on to our non-monetary?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
We should start with it. Oh, you put things. Oh, should we go with,
Page 3.
Yeah, good.
addition of the, yeah.
I lost my page. Okay, so, one of the things that, in the discussion they wanted to, try to get in is the addition of President's Day as a paid holiday. I think just about everybody that works in education can agree that February is the roughest month of the school year in terms of consecutive days worked, and just be a good opportunity for a mental health day, as well as days that people can do things without having to take a leave day. In looking at the rest of the districts in Southwest Kansas, half of the districts in Southwest Kansas on last year's calendar had President's Day off. The other half worked it, and a large percentage of them, roughly half, used it as a professional development day. So it wouldn't be outside of the scope of the norm for this area to have that as a day off.
You know how many holidays those other districts have total in their calendars?
Let's see what still has that. As far as a hard number, no, but as I pull it up, like Thanksgiving, 6 of the districts in Southwest do a full week for Thanksgiving break or fall break. The rest are all at the normal 3 days off. For Christmas, we had one district that was working on the 23rd. Everybody else had that off. For January 2nd, one district working, everyone else had it off. 2 were working on the 3rd, everyone else had it off. Easter, 75% of Southwest Kansas has a 4-day weekend. And Veterans Day was the other day that we looked at, and nobody had that off.
I get it. It's just hard without the full picture to
Right.
make that comparison of these people have this day off and you don't. So you got to look at everything from what's the total number of contracted days to the amount of student contact time, and is there even time built in the schedule to have the minutes to take another day off? What's the proposal, so to speak, of is it just giving up the student contact time of that day, or would that day go somewhere else?
Well, I show that on our own calendar, last year we had 7 snow days. We've used 3 total. Like, I know one was professional development day, so that was like 3/4 of the day counted for KSDE hours. Is that right?
Yeah.
Half, okay, half of it. So technically, according to our KSDE hours for the students, we've only dropped 2 of our days for the snow days this year, right?
I think so. I think we've had more than 2, but I don't know that we have that.
We had one in January, but that was a professional development day, and then we had 2 days. Yeah, somebody, I agree, I'm thinking that I'm right, that we've only used 3 snow days this year, and
That might be right.
that's like 2 more than we did last year, and we've had 7 extra KSDE hours of days in our calendar already, so that was like, we're
There
at,
was 7 extra days built in last year. Is that what you're for this school year's calendar?
it says it right on our calendar, it's 2020,
We had 3 snow days in a row.
this
One
year.
was staff development day.
One was a staff development, yes.
January 8th, 9th, and 10th.
This
Well,
year
we're
we
supposed to
had
have
7.611 hours K through 5. We had 7.610 hours 6 through 8, and
Yeah.
we had
Days,
6.61
I'm trying to,
snow days. Those are days, sorry, not hours, days.
so that's based on the 1,116.
Yeah, it's actually 1,166.737 is what we have done on student KSDE hours.
But the required number is ours.
1,116.
16, right?
Yeah, 1,100.
That was last year's.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So,
saying.
just making sure, because I don't remember there being that many full days. Always thought it was around 5.
But it says, I'm getting it right off of our printed calendar that says right here, right below the hours above, and then 7.611, those are the days above.
And that's for the 25-26 school year,
That's for this school year, 24-25.
but we're.
So, and yes,
We're,
you were asking
Yes,
about
I know.
that. But
okay.
next year it is,
That's my confusion.
Yeah.
I was thinking that.
Next year is this one.
yeah, it's 6.984 days, so it's still about 7 days.
Let me
And that's on the K through 8 calendar. it is missing,
Yeah, we don't have it
those
from the
numbers
high
are
school.
missing on the high school. Or, yeah, high school.
So that would be about accurate, because I did do a little bit of research to try to figure out what we still had left this year for inclement weather and things, and it looks like potentially we're around 3.89 days. So that would take off those 3 that already. And that's based on a true audit of the minutes. Basically at the high school usually has the fewest amount of minutes because of the state music program out there. And so that's the one that we keep track of the most.
So what day is the state music program day?
Middle of April,
April something, 15th, I think, for the last 2 years.
thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
guess,
the high school
just
gets
had it.
that day,
Mhm.
but the rest of the district doesn't get that day, so.
Well, we work.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but they're talking about contact.
Contact
Contact
time,
days,
yes.
yes.
So this year it was the 9th. And next year it will be the 15th.
Okay. So that, I guess that answers part of it, that there should be minutes potentially available, but would that be lost student contact time? Is that the request?
Well, I think that we could shift it around somewhere, and if you're concerned about lost student contact time, the thing is that we're already adding, I think, another day for contact from, we're already giving another day K through 8, we gained another day of contact because of the change in parent-teacher conferences.
Is that going back to the question at the beginning? So that was PD time that was potentially added?
That is two separate things. What I'm saying is, like, last year we had 4 parent-teacher conferences. Actually, this year, we'll talk this calendar year. This school year, we had 4. So that meant you had 4 Fridays that you didn't have days, right? K through 8. So you're gonna take and keep, instead of 4 Fridays, now you only have 2 Fridays where you don't have school. So you're adding in basically contact days there with the kids. Unless I'm
No, because
misreading.
we didn't extend the school day anywhere, and you still have the same Friday off.
But we have,
And you get the whole Friday off instead of part of the Friday off because that PD moved to the other days. I'm still trying, and we'll look into it, obviously from your original question. But my thought is that PD that used to happen on those other 2 Fridays is the PD that you're now seeing show up on those 2 days.
we didn't have PD on those Fridays.
Those have
So they were just,
We had half a day of parent-teacher conferences where the people who can't make it at night come, and then we were off the other half.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying, though. You were giving us basically no student contact on 4 days, and now it's only no student contact on 2 days for parent-teacher conferences
at the K
at the K-8.
level.
I realize that doesn't affect the high school, but
And between now and the next time we meet, I will have an answer for you on a comparison between student contact days, PD days, teacher work days, and the holidays. To just,
Thank you.
so that we can kind of
Is that,
compare that
that's
across the board.
looking at the whole thing. And I have some of the same information as well that I can share.
we had a little bit of changeover, and our person who normally does that is in Iowa as a part of their staff now. So we're kind of picking up the slack there a bit. Normally I have that a month ago.
So that would be a decrease in contract days, correct? The President's Day?
Well, I don't know exactly how it's figured, if that's what sorry, that's my child. Because, do we have that? School holidays 17, that's part of that, isn't it? I don't know. I believe that is true, that it would be a, reduction of a contact day,
Of a working day.
of a contract.
So maybe get more information, correct?
So yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to bring some of the other pieces of that back for the next times. And we can also, that'll also give us an opportunity to have some discussion around those other two pieces that you brought to our attention, Angela, with that time piece.
Looks like the next non-monetary thing that we had on here was the school calendar committee. What we were looking at and what we were going to propose is to keep a lot of the language that's in there, but to add to it and strike out a little portion of it. So as we look at Article 3, going through
Page 10.
Yes. It's right here.
Okay, so starting out, the first two paragraphs, all of those bullet points, we were going to propose keeping as is. Getting down into the paragraph after that, keeping that as is, and then adding a paragraph that kind of changes the process. And 3 calendars will be developed by members of the calendar committee. The committee will review any suggested calendars presented by Dodge City Public School administrators and DCNEA executives. They'll use any combination of those suggestions and their own suggestions and their own work to create 3 calendar options. Those 3 proposed calendars will be voted upon by the bargaining unit of USD443, and the proposal receiving the most votes will be submitted as the recommendation to the board. Going into the next paragraph, striking out much of it. And the reason for the striking out much of it is this gets into hours and amounts of work. Anytime you want to make an adjustment to either add or remove days, to change around your professional work days, to change around your professional learning, those things are all mandatory topics of bargaining, and only members of the bargaining unit and the Board of Education should be voting to ratify that. And in this process, it has people who are not part of the bargaining unit as a part of that decision-making process. So the changes that we would suggest would be to remove those people who are not part of the bargaining unit or the Board of Education from that process. And then going back into the next paragraph, where it starts out as the committee shall, it says make its recommendation, And we're proposing to change it from make to share. And then the rest of that paragraph stays exactly the same. And then moving in, and again, this is some more structural process change getting into where the paragraph after that, where it starts out, the committee shall be guided. On block 1, there shall be no more than 180 days. And we'll talk about that more in a bit. The certified contract employee days. The calendar committee shall not have the authority to determine the length of the student instructional day, keeping that, or deviating from the requirements of the negotiated agreement, keeping that. Adding an exception can be made if the Board of Education or DCNEA have recommended altering hours and amounts of work via the length of the duty day. So that would give both your side and our side the ability to make those recommendations to the calendar committee. If say, and this is not a proposal that we have, I'm just using it as an example. Say either your side or our side wants to go to a 4-day work week. That gives them the flexibility to send that request to the calendar committee. Or if say you wanted to lengthen the school year by going from the same amount of hours that you have to maybe reducing the work day by, 20 minutes a day, so that you have more student contact days to reduce that learning loss over the summer. Whatever the case may be, that provides that flexibility to do that. Block 3 would stay the same. We are proposing adding a block 4. And with block 4, it says if the Board of Education agrees with the calendar that the bargaining unit selected, the matter will be considered ratified, and that calendar will be placed in the negotiated agreement as an appendix item. If the Board of Education does not agree with the calendar presented, the Board of Education will send the presented calendar to the bargaining committees of both sides with the recommended changes. The proposed changes to the calendar committee will then be collectively bargained as a part of the normal bargaining process. And then the last paragraph is stricken, where it says upon receiving the committee's recommendation, the Board of Education shall be solely responsible for the final adoption of the school calendar. And again, that's because calendar changes do impact hours and amounts of work. And so because it can impact hours and amounts of work, we don't feel that should be a unilateral decision.
I disagree that it's hours and amounts of work. It's the calendar committee that makes recommendations to the board as to ultimately, again, the provision that states that the board ultimately is solely responsible for the adoption of the school calendar. So discussions about, and recommendations of the school calendar is not hours and amounts of work. It may impact, I doubt, again, not always, but I disagree that this is hours and amounts of work. I think it could be one of your 3 topics, but it is not hours and amounts of work. So
if we wanted to add 25 minutes to the workday to reduce a duty day, that doesn't impact hours and amounts of work.
and that is outlined somewhere else in the agreement.
Okay.
So the number of duty days, how long the duty day is, I would agree is hours and amounts of work, and that's somewhere else in the agreement, and we would discuss it under that provision. But in terms of the actual calendar committee and the goal that the calendar committee has, I think there could be a change to some of the language in the provision of calendar committee, but it is not specific. I'm not saying we can't discuss the number of certified employee contract days under hours and amounts of work, and that there isn't language in the calendar committee provision that reflects how many those are, but there can't be a change to the calendar committee of how many certified contract days there are, and that then somehow carries over to the other provision. We have to discuss the hours and amounts of work, but the calendar committee is exactly that. It's a committee that makes recommendations about the calendar. That's not hours and amounts of work.
Right, and if I can follow that process, if the calendar committee goes through and they recommend a calendar and it goes to the school board, and the school board decides that, okay, we're going to accept this calendar as is, and the association decides that, we would like to bargain to have 5 days, and making something up, have 5 days removed from the calendar. And well, the calendar's already out, it's already been approved by the board. How is that not bargaining in bad faith? Because the decision was already made unilaterally before the board, before this body would have an opportunity to bargain. Or reverse that, if, say, for example, you wanted to add those 5 days, goes through the calendar committee, Board of Education approves it, and then somewhere along the line, a decision is made that, okay, we need to add these things back in. Then at that point, and again, that decision has already been made in advance of bargaining.
So I think there's a provision within the calendar committee, and I think that there's also a requirement that the board has to comply with the negotiated agreement. I'm not arguing that if there is a request, and I believe it was noticed, to change the number of duty days. I'm not disputing that that's hours and amounts of work and something we are obligated to discuss. It's a mandatory topic of negotiations. I don't think the calendar committee is the mechanism in which to try to effectuate that change. The calendar committee provides recommendations. The language is clear that it's the board's responsibility. So again, if it was mutually agreed to at the table to change the number of duty days, I'm not saying that wouldn't impact the calendar that the board initially or ultimately approves. But the item of calendar committee and the role that the calendar committee plays, I do not believe is hours and amounts of work. And I don't think, unless it is noticed as one of your other 3 items, because it is in the agreement, I would say otherwise it's a permissive item, we're not required to negotiate. But because it is in fact in the agreement, I would say it's a mandatory topic, but it would be one of the other 3. I will allow everyone else, and maybe it's something we need to caucus on, we can discuss whether that's something they're willing to discuss. Even though I don't believe that it's hours and amounts of work. But I just think it's important to make sure that we're all on the same page. And again, I'm not saying that decisions about hours and amounts of work and the number of days could not impact the calendar committee. It's just not inherently hours and amounts of the work that the committee does and the language in that, especially talking about who gets a vote and who doesn't. That's not hours and amounts of work.
Okay, as far as the other provisions outside of the 2 that you just discussed, excuse me, the language, the remainder of the language, are you collectively seeing any issues with it, seeing any parts of it that you would be open to?
Is that in the drive?
It's being put in the
Could be, hopefully.
the active 2025.
That's one other thing that I know we did last year, especially, is when we had proposals and things, we put them.
Yeah, I was trying to get it in there right away. Oh, up
Put
there.
them there, just so because I heard everything you said.
Right.
But
It's easier.
I have no clue what you
And I
just said.
I think I got it in there the
Until
right way.
I'm able to
was
see it
behaving
on paper
badly.
in front of me.
That is fair.
Like I said, I think I got it in there the right way, but it was behaving badly, so.
And I'll be honest, that was a lot of information, and without taking some time to really look through it and decipher what it actually is or isn't, I can't sit here and say, yeah, everything else sounded good or everything else didn't sound good. I think literally it's something that we need to caucus on, whether it be the last thing we do today and we take care of that caucus before the next meeting and come back prepared with some of those other things we did, or if you have other items, we can hold on that caucus and not do it now and just be ready when we come back to that next meeting, because I think we have 2 weeks before we are scheduled again. If we want to schedule some more after that, we can, or we can wait until that one to schedule some more after that.
I think we should get them scheduled and get them out, because I know my schedule gets really packed. It's already that way. I don't want to have it out in the world.
Well, with this change.
So back to this, if we can have that proposal put in there so we have it to look at, we can.
It's not the negotiations drive.
Yeah, it's
The
in
one
that-
that's, go down, Joni, the
right
one
there,
that says
active.
active.
That one.
Yes, sir. And go over,
Oh, I see, okay.
yeah, and go down. And you're too far over, but yeah.
It's
That's the one we're doing.
In here.
the next item, below the orange.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. So let's squish this a bit.
I think, just as a suggestion, I think it would be a better use of time if we could have more things. So as opposed to caucusing now, unless that's something you guys really want to do, I'd rather hear more proposals so we have more to talk about and then we keep kind of moving. But I think until we have an opportunity to talk, I don't know that we're willing to negotiate the calendar committee portion, but it's in there. We'll look, and we'll have that discussion. But I think if we can have a couple of other proposals and just the background,
Okay.
that would be a better use of time unless you all have.
No, I would agree with that. Team. All right. So, let's see, under the 3 mandatory items, item number 1, the association seeks to create a new article that's all encompassing, employee rights, responsibility, professional practices. The first block on there was a student discipline, and then the second block on there was student teacher safety. We have,
Put that in there.
we were able to come up with some examples of some student safety language that we can provide for you, and some student discipline language. Let's see if I can put this on here. On the professional practices part, what we were proposing is that it would be a committee, and the committee would be representatives of the association and of human relations, and their charge would be to review and that they may be able to provide policy recommendations for all professional practices. And so that could include professional development. It could include basically anything that's going to, like ethics, code of ethics, or things of that sort, where we would have the potential for the association and the district to work together to develop those processes, but also to have some sort of an onboarding. So if we had, say, for example, an ethics violation or a proposed ethics violation, where that committee could meet and determine, okay, this does pass the muster, let's pass this on to HR and let HR take action. Or no, we don't feel that, collectively that this does rise to that level where HR needs to be involved. And with that, again, it could include multiple things. It could be your professional development, could be just about anything that's going to rise to that level of professional practices.
Tried to put it in there, it's just eating that. It's like putting it in all of the different, so. All of the different spots. I don't know why it's doing that.
And the second portion of this, and it is, yeah, that would be best. And it is linked, because this could be one of those professional practices that could be a part of that, would be the Safe Learning Advisory Council. And again, that would be a similar thing where it would be a cooperative council with the district and the association. And the charge would be to review and provide policy recommendations, as well as applicable procedures and practices surrounding the safe work environment. And it would be a pilot program, meaning it would be built to evolve as the needs of the district evolved. And that is,
Pasted it into a Google Doc.
that did not pop in right.
No, that's what I said.
Yes.
I just pasted it
Showed
into
us
a
what you
Google Doc. Would you grab the Google Doc that says Safe Learning Council?
I got an untitled document here with red.
Yep,
lettering.
yep.
Oh yeah, now the title popped up there.
Yeah.
It didn't get the last part of it.
Okay,
It didn't
that's
get
what I
5
said.
and 6.
I missed part of it. Okay, so then these two.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Two. Okay.
There it is.
And again, this is really wordy, so it's probably one that you're gonna wanna caucus and look at. But these are taken from existing language that already exists in schools.
Can you tell me what provision, what mandatory provision this would fall under?
I think we said.
In our letter, this is in the.
I see it, yeah, I see it in the letter. I'm just wondering under what terms and condition of professional service, which are the mandatory topics.
Yeah, well,
These to me read permissive.
and we do have it listed as purpose.
Okay,
It's listed as-
No, you're not looking at the updated? Amended DCNEA?
Pretty sure I've got the amended one right here.
Up to 3 mandatory and for the purpose of the additional language change. So we're saying we have done up to the 3, but additional language change and then seeks new article.
Yeah, this is intended as a permissive topic, not as a
Mhm.
mandatory topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're fully aware that this is a permissive topic.
I'm sorry, I have it listed as the number 1 under the mandatory.
No,
So-
our number 1 under mandatory is compensation.
Oh, yeah,
Salary.
I have it on page 2, at the top of page 2.
Yes, page 2, number
I think the
1.
confusing part is just the title to that area says up to 3 mandatory items from KSA 72-22-118. And so when we read that,
Yeah.
We're
it's not a
thinking-
mandatory topic,
you have that
Okay.
listed as
it's
3.
mandatory that we can have up to 3 topics on.
But they have to be mandatory topics of negotiation.
The 3 permissive has to be mandatory?
Yes.
Is what you're saying?
Yes.
I would like to see that in the, DCNEA. Under which one is that?
It's 2228. C.
Weird place.
2228. Where it says, you shall negotiate compensation for hours of employment, not more than 3 terms and conditions of professional service from the list of 18.
Yeah, and under the list of 28E, terms and conditions of professional service includes, other holidays, insurance, apparel, overtime, grievance procedures, including binding arbitration, disciplinary procedures, resignations, non-renewals, reemployment, terms formed for the individual professional employee contract, probationary period, professional employee appraisal, each of the foregoing terms, regardless of the provision, impact the employee, matters related to privilege to be granted. I know I'm just kind of reading generically, but I know it was here.
So what I'm saying is I don't think these items fit under those definitions that are required. Because it does, 2228 does go on to state that everything else will be considered permissive. And I agree, I believe that these are permissive items and permissive are always permissive. So the 3 additional, my reading of the statute is they have to be within the terms and conditions of 72-22-18 L1. And I don't think these fall into that.
So you're arguing that we can't even have these discussions about this topic because you say it doesn't follow under the 2218 or the 22, what was the other one?
Yeah, so 2218 L1 would be the items that are considered mandatory topics of negotiation. And then 72-22-28 talks about the items that can be noticed, which is compensation, hours and amounts of work, and then 3 other items that fall under those terms and conditions of employment, those mandatory topics. So permissive items are always going to be permissive. We're not required to talk about those at the table. So even though you listed that as one of your items, they're still permissive. They have to fall under one of the mandatory topics of negotiation.
So then the next question, is this something that you would consider a topic that you would be willing to discuss?
And that's something that we would need to, similar to the calendar committee, we would need to caucus and discuss whether that's even something we're willing to discuss at the table.
Would it not fall under disciplinary procedure?
That's for employee disciplinary procedure, not student discipline.
Correct, but if the administration decides that they don't like how an employee is handling a situation that's talked about in this, wouldn't that squarely fall under disciplinary procedure?
Not from the information that was provided in the notice letter. That was not my understanding of what was, that it was about disciplinary structure in regards to students. And I'm not saying that these aren't important items that need to be discussed. My question is whether they should be discussed at the table or included in the negotiated agreement.
Okay. Then we'll treat that like one of our caucus items.
Sure.
And I will say this before we break to that caucus. This is a major factor in why teachers are leaving the profession, so I would urge you to at least consider having the conversation. And I do see where you're coming from with the argument that you're making, which is also going to change what we have as our next item on there, the association rights and responsibilities. You were going to, based on your argument, view that as the same.
Okay.
And so we will leave that to the caucus. We'll provide you with that information
That
as
would be
well.
great.
And just in the interest of saving everyone's time.
Sure.
Then the last one that we have on there is the leave policy. Well, I didn't say the last one, but the next one that's on there is the leave policy. And with leave policy, the changes that we are looking to propose Is,
Yes,
am I going too fast?
yes, I think that there's somebody that's actually more prepared to speak about the leave policy. I'd like to hold that off. I mean, we are willing to share what we have to say, but
That's been Andrea's deal
yes,
for 2
yes,
years, so
because
I
she's been on the
respect that.
committee.
Yes.
So we do have that leave policy we would like to talk to. I'm sorry.
No, that's fair. And with that being said, then I think that's about as far as we're gonna be able to get for tonight, other than getting you that information and then also trying to lock down some future dates. I will say on the association rights and responsibilities stuff, it's all things that we're already doing, that we would just like to have codified in a negotiated agreement, just in case there's a political shift that would potentially hinder that, whether it's a school board, whether it's a state board of education or the legislature. It's some protections for things that you're already doing and we appreciate and would like to see you continue to do.
Yeah, I can't remember. Who's that?
Next one's on the 13th.
There it is. And again, nothing says we can't try to find something between now and then. It was just when I looked at those original dates that were emailed to me and communicated with our people, those were the ones that we could make work. Maybe something else between now and then works for people now that didn't originally.
I would,
Go ahead.
I don't know if it's gonna be too busy. The week of May 5th is Teacher Appreciation Week. I don't know if your people are gonna be jam-packed on that.
I can tell you I have one day available. Because we have, well, I have two, but nobody wants to do it on Friday. Because we have WAC soccer and the DCMS soccer. And sorry, I have a secondary job.
Yes.
What time are we meeting on the 12th? I mean, the 13th?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock?
So we're not looking at the week of the 5th?
It doesn't sound like.
Okay.
it, So.
Just before I moved.
I'd like to skip that one. I don't think that we have anything before that, but I do have, what do you have, the 15th?
For what day?
May 15th.
I'm good on the 15th.
You guys can't. We did the 13th. Just need to. Out and back.
Is,
Or do you want to
does that
do it?
go work?
Well, that's what.
I was gonna say-
It works for me. I mean, I can certainly do it. I'm free that day.
We could also move it instead of the 15th, do it the 19th.
I can do the 19th. So
Could I see all heads?
I won't
the
forget.
15th, the 15th
Or if we start at 4, I'll be late, but I can make 15th work. And we'll be late enough that they'll be able to do what they need to without me for that time that I'm late if needed.
So, can we say that on the 13th, one of our topics that we are going to discuss would be the leave so that that person can be available?
Sure.
And so do we want to do 4? Do we want to push back to 4:30?
That's up to y'all. I think we can make it work as a team either way from our perspective. And I'll just be completely transparent. It's because we have a home baseball game. And my son has had to sit out with an injury for about half the season, and I'm thinking he'll hopefully be able to play the first game that day, but we'll see. And that starts at 4, and so I was just thinking I would keep as much of that first game as I possibly could, and get back over here by 4:45 or so.
And then on the 13th, just to clarify, that was 4 o'clock as well.
Yeah, I think that like when we communicated through email, they were all just kind of penciled in 4-7.
Mhm.
And so, again, we could still do that on the 15th if your whole team is available from 4 to 7.
Because, yeah, we'll get into June.
Andrea just
Yeah, let me
texted.
see.
She can't do
She-
the
nope.
13th.
So can we need to push our topic of leave to another day?
Can we do that one on the 15th? She's available then.
Okay, yeah, can we push our leave topic to the 15th?
Sure.
She can,
Yeah.
yes.
It's up to you all. If you would rather move it to 5 on the 15th, and then I'll be here right when it starts, that's fine.
Move it to 5.
That's fine.
Better for me too.
Just leave it to 7.
And then,
Thank you.
do we want to do a contingency day? Just because we can wrap up on the 15th.
Because we.
We'll definitely have to have some more days, because I don't know that we'll make it all the way through all of the finance stuff, even in those 2 days, so we might want to go ahead and look at. Now we're getting into
Yeah.
end of the school year week.
Well, that's the week of the 19th for you, right?
Yeah.
If we skip to the 27th and 29th,
I'm out.
A week.
1 week.
27th,
29th, I'm not here.
okay.
I'm here.
Well, I just threw those days out.
Yes, 27th through the 29th.
Yeah, that's my vacation.
First week in
Maybe.
June is good.
And we meet,
Yeah, I was,
throw some dates out.
what do you guys have for June first week? I know I have one I can't do.
Now we're getting into summer and sleepy time.
Which would be, that's why we say this.
It's perfect, I'm already in town.
I am fine until the 9th of June that week. I haven't gotten my thing, but I might be in an Indigenous people's thing at KU for that whole week. And then I know the week of the 16th, I'm gone because I got the social studies trip all week.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
What about that first week?
Yeah, the first week.
That
of
first
June.
week is, June is open for me.
What if we say, I can't do the 4th? What if, do we want to try to do maybe Wednesday, the 28th, and then, because you'll be here on the 28th. No,
She said that whole week.
I thought you said you would be gone on the 29th. I misheard you. So
I'm
then,
leaving the day after Memorial Day and I'll be back that next month.
okay,
I'm going out.
you're gone the June 2nd through the 6th, or the other,
End of May.
June 2nd through the 6th?
School's
And
out.
I'm just really trying, in full transparency, we are going to be on summer break, and we're already doing our our institution, so I don't want to take up people's too much of their time since this is their innate and sometimes be really busy time.
I don't have grad school. It's all good. It's all for fun learning now.
Stuff you want to learn about.
So we
Oh,
can
well,
get
now,
that
I was
email.
a James Madison fellow. I wanted to learn all that. It just took a lot of work.
You'd be here on the second.
My June is open.
Could we try for the 2nd of June? You guys have a problem with that?
And I think last year we did a few where we started right after the Summer Institute got over because there were certain people involved in that, but then it still gave us like a 4-hour block of time in the afternoon where we didn't have to go all the way into the evening.
Uh-huh.
Is that still the same schedule with the Summer Institute?
It goes till 3,
3:30 in the afternoon.
depending on which one we're scheduled.
Friday, first week,
I
second.
can't remember what I signed up for.
But is there like some in the morning and then some in the afternoon and it's split shifts, so to speak? Or is it,
Depends on the
you're
topic.
there all, okay. So I guess we may have to go on meeting still on that day, but depending on team members' availability. How would you be on the second? How are you on the second? Sure.
Taking the day.
So it sounds like
The second.
we're good on the second, at pretty much any time. So
Is that what you're checking?
I'm trying to remember what I signed up for and where, because I don't.
So do you want to just tentative pencil in the second and then we'll determine the time for sure?
I'm gonna block off the whole day and then just wing it.
Like, that's my life philosophy.
Let's see here, June 2nd, KMP. API training, smart interactive board, bid queue. Light science. No, I don't think I signed up until the second week of June.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then time-wise, do we want to do midday or do we want to do?
I think on the second, we're gonna pencil in a 3 to sometime, just in case we have. And if we have people who are signed up for any time on the second, then we will do the 3 o'clock. But if we have people signed up with that, or nobody signed up for the second, which one are you signed up for? So did you do it in the morning? You did it in the afternoon?
What time is that?
3.
Well, yeah.
So if we
we're
say
right down that road.
3:30, yeah, that's not.
Yeah, that's
Oh, we'll be right here.
So we have the 13th, the 15th, and the 2nd. The 13th, we start at 5 p.m.
No, 15.
15th, I meant. I wasn't paying attention to that. What other topics do you think we will be covering, able to cover on the 13th?
We should be able to come back to that key situation. I should be able to have the answers to those couple of questions on the calendar by then, so.
And I'll have my calendar answers. If I can get that sooner, I'll.
Thank you.
So we're saving compensation until at least June's.
Or maybe, I don't have that leave thing, shouldn't, I don't foresee it taking a whole long time based on prior conversation, but I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but maybe that one, we could start that conversation. I can, oh, shit. February 15th, would we be ready to start having some compensation discussions?
Talking in
May?
June.
May? Either that or it's June 2nd is the next one we currently have scheduled. You'll let us know on the 13th?
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that we have information for everyone.
Well, and the good news is now that we at least got them scheduled, if we get to the end of one and we're like, what are our topics for the next one? And we all go, we don't have any, then I guess we'll move it until when we are ready for the compensation discussion, so. Thank you.
All right, we do want to verify our stuff to make sure everybody's on the same page. Do you have-
I do. Active bargaining. So, our rules we have agreed upon, including, us being responsible for getting it going, but electronic, streaming, are coming back to the key proposal after, questions are being answered. We have a tentative agreement about adding to our department chair list. And I'm thinking if we need to, maybe we can hash out some language for these tentatively agreed so that we have it prepared. And then the split chair language, we have fully agreed that we're adding the language for the band because we're just changing it to include a high school assistant and a middle school floater. I put his, no, I got it right. And then, we have agreed to move our class coverage for elementary from the location it is on page 20 to page 22, leaving it called direct instruction language underneath there, but the elementary teacher class coverage language, including the 30:58 per hour, will move to the same location as secondary. And then additional holiday requested by us is tabled. So was the language with the calendar committee. So was the student discipline and the association rights. I have everything. Did we have anything else?
Oh, there was the discussion about the professional development day change on the calendar that he was gonna look into.
And that would be under our,
That was a question for clarity, it wasn't a bargaining issue, it was the tertiary item we said.
so I did not put that in.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Oh, I think I will highlight that in a color and put it on the other side so that we can put it there too. If you guys are okay. Okay. There. That was the last one I had forgotten because I missed where I put it. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I really like the organization of that document, by the way. It's a lot easier to follow than the scrolling Word doc.
Yeah, I made that because they kind of said before, like a word that they had agreed on everything, both sides